It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre, and I'm living in a world where the CCSU Blue Devils are NEC champions. CCSU, with the win over Robert Morris, they are now FCS playoff bound. 10 wins for the first time in program history. What a run for CCSU, and what a run it's been for yours truly. It's been a pleasure taking you through the 2019 NEC football season. We've arrived at week 13, the final week of the regular season. All 9 NEC teams are in action, so let's do it. Let's kick off one more opening drive. We'll start with Merrimack at LIU. 2 NEC newcomers will meet to close out their first FCS seasons. Merrimack at 5-5, playing for a winning overall record. Meanwhile, Mac senior receiver Marquis Spence, well, he's looking to extend a streak of his own. He's made at least 4 catches in all 9 games he's played this season. As for LIU, the Sharks hoping to break through and secure a victory in the season finale at Bethpage Federal Credit Union Stadium. Now, these 2 programs met as Division II opponents last year. That game went to LIU 37-20. You can watch this year's D1 edition live on NEC Front Row on Saturday. Next up, Bryant at Wagner. The Bulldogs head down to Staten Island 1 week after a marquee victory over Duquesne. The Bulldogs made just enough plays to squeak past the Dukes. In particular, the red zone defense was sensational for Bryant. Duquesne had a first and goal on 3 different occasions inside of the Bryant 5, but came up with only a total of 6 points.
When they believe in what you're doing schematically, and they line up and where they're supposed to line up, and they fit where they're supposed to fit, that's the confidence they're playing with. They understand where their role is in the defense and where they fit in, and that's where the ball goes, and they're there to make the tackle.
Senior linebackers Robert Brown and Jesse Nemerowitz, they were a huge part of those big defensive stops. They combined for 30 tackles in the win over Duquesne, and they'll have an important role again this week.
The goal for this week is leave your mark. Let's do it the right way. Let's leave your mark. Come back in 10 years and realize what you've started here. And that what the program is, where it is then, based off what you do this next 6 days. And for us, for those seniors, special time for them. Many of them will never get to put the helmet on again the rest of their life. We just want to make sure that it's a group effort, that we're going on the road, playing in a hostile stadium against a very good, very athletic football team. And we need to continue the momentum that we've started, not only with the win last Saturday, but how we've played the game in the last 8 weeks.
Flipping it over to the Wagner side, one of the Seahawks' primary goals in Week 13 will be to take care of the football.
There in the last 2 games, we're -9 in the turnover battle. I mean, you can't win a football game that way. And our motto has always been ball first, and we've traditionally been very good with the football over the last 5 years. So, we just got to get back to the basics and attack the game of football the way it needs to be attacked. And number one, you have to take care of the ball on offense and specials, and then take it away on defense.
Now, I mentioned the 2 senior linebackers who were performing at a high level for Bryant. Well, Wagner has one in its own, senior Santoni Graham. Graham, with a team leading 81 tackles this season, that's top 10 amongst NEC leaders. Well, he and his fellow classmates will have one last chance to strap it up on Saturday.
And then said to the guys, we got one last week here to go out and represent the school and ourselves the right way. And I think with the character in that room and the guys, we challenged them hard today. We challenged them. And I think everyone was excited about that challenge.
The lone non-conference game on the docket, St. Francis visiting MEAC member Delaware State. Now, you may remember that Merrimack took care of Del State earlier this season. DSU's only 2 wins have come at home. The Red Flash will be on the road for this one as they look to even their overall record at 6-6. St. Francis with 3 overtime losses this season, but the Flash took care of business in regulation against Wagner last week, and the passing game continued to perform at a high level. It's really hit its stride. Jason Brown, 15 touchdown passes and only 1 INT over his past 5 games, 3 TD passes in all 5 of those games, averaging more than 300 yards per outing during that stretch. And he'll look to fly high into the offseason. St. Francis at Delaware State. Out to the Steel City, where we have 2 NEC games this week. First, in Moon Township, Sacred Heart is visiting Robert Morris. Now the SHU Pioneers take aim at victory number 8. It's another winning season for Mark Nofri and company, and it's been a special one for sophomore running back Julius Chestnut. Chestnut has a regular season FCS rushing title within reach. He has over 1,300 yards, ranking 2nd amongst FCS leaders.
Mind-blowing. I would never thought I'd be like this this early in my career, but with the help of the staff and the players, they got me to where I am today.
Now, as for Robert Morris, Bernard Clark's Colonials look to close out their memorable NEC season with a 6-conference win. That would be quite an accomplishment for a program that had just 1 NEC win combined over the prior 3 seasons. In 5 conference wins this season, the Robert Morris defense has limited opposing run games to under 100 yards per outing on average. Opponents are running the ball at just 2.8 yards per carry against the Robert Morris defense. And Sacred Heart's Julius Chestnut, the NEC's leading rusher, is ready to face a prime opponent with 2nd place on the line.
I think we're going to be pretty ready because everybody knows it's a big game. It's our last game of the season. Everybody wants to come out with a dub. So I feel like everybody knows what's on the line. Either we come in 2nd or we come in 3rd, but I think everybody knows that we since we're not going to be able to get in 1st place, 2nd is what we need to accomplish.
Our final matchup to tackle on the Week 13 docket, it's the Central Connecticut Blue Devils invading the Bluff to take on the Duquesne Dukes. This has been a heated rivalry in recent years. These 2 teams met on the Bluff in 2017 in what was a winner-take-all game. CCSU prevailed by 1 point. Last year, Duquesne won at CCSU, clinching its Northeast Conference crown. And now, of course, this year, CCSU enters as a top 25 team, already having secured the conference's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. As for what we expect to see on Saturday, well, other than getting a glimpse at the NEC champion Blue Devils, this game will be a curtain call for Duquesne senior running back A.J. Hines. Hines missed 2+ games due to injury this year, but that wasn't enough to put a damper on a remarkable career. Hines last week moved into second place on the NEC's all-time rushing list, surpassing his current running backs coach, Larry McCoy. Hines, with his 25th 100-yard game last week, he has 5 100-yard performances this season, 4,619 rush yards. That's second in Northeast Conference history, and we will get to see him put the helmet on one more time live in what will be the NEC's featured game of the week on ESPN3. Now, Hines will go up against the Central Connecticut run defense that ranks number 1 in the nation. The Blue Devils allowing under 64 rush yards per game. Duquesne's defense also possesses some nationally recognized credentials. The Duke's pass defense ranks 8th amongst FCS team leaders, allowing only 167 yards per game. The Duke's defense has allowed a league-low 10 touchdown passes this year. To put that in perspective, Central Connecticut quarterback Aaron Winchester and receiver Tyshawn James have hooked up for 8 touchdowns through the air alone this season. Duquesne only allowing 10 touchdown passes over 10 games this year. Getting back to Winchester and James, though, they've connected 8 times through the air, but they've also combined for 13 rushing touchdowns. Winchester has run for 8 scores, James 5 rushing touchdowns. CCSU's 29 rushing TDs are 11th most in the nation. Just another superlative for the NEC champs. CCSU on offense averaging over 6.8 yards per play. That's 5th in the nation. Their pass efficiency rating is 5th best in the nation. Turnover margin, they rank 2nd. And in total defense, CCSU is tied in the number 1 spot with North Dakota State. It's the nationally ranked Blue Devils against an NEC heavyweight in Duquesne, and it'll be live on ESPN3. Paul Dottino, Jeff Feagles, Craig D'Amico will be on the call. Let's check in on the NEC stock market. I'll tell you whose value is all the way up. And it's a double dose of Bulldogs in this week's stock rising segment. First, defensive back Andre Brackett. He's a junior and the former NEC Defensive Rookie of the Year has stepped up big time for the Bryant secondary.
Andre is just, he has a nose for the ball. You know, he plays at a different speed. His game speed is faster than the opponent's. When he sees it, he goes and gets it. You know, and I think even the mistakes that he's made this year, they're very aggressive mistakes because they have to run double moves to beat him. He's a guy that when that ball's around him, he goes after it.
In last week's win over Duquesne, Brackett had a forced fumble along with an interception that he returned to the 2-yard line. It led to a crucial Bryant touchdown. It was his 3rd interception this season. Andre Big Play Brackett, his stock is on the way up, and he's not the only one. Let's take a look at the Bulldogs' special teams, in particular, junior place kicker Luke Sampieri. Now, Sampieri surfaced last season when he made a game-winning field goal at the gun against Fordham. Well, this year, he's taken another step up in production, converting field goals at 84.6%. He has made 11 three-pointers this year. That's tied for the Bryant single-season record. In the win over Duquesne, he made a 45-yarder and a 50-yard kick the 50-yard field goal, the longest in the NEC this season. Luke Sampieri, 11 field goals, converting at 85%. His stock is all the way up. I'm taking the final Twitter timeout of the season. Looking at the tweet sheet, we go back to Scott Pioli, the former NFL GM, longtime front office executive, a CCSU alumnus. He's tweeting about his Blue Devils once again. Pioli congratulating quarterback Aaron Winchester and the Blue Devils for their NEC title. The former general manager of the New England Patriots thanking the quarterback for choosing to come to Central Connecticut. You probably remember that Winchester began his collegiate career at Georgia State. He was a graduate transfer to Central Connecticut. In his first season as the Blue Devil starting signal caller, he has been nothing short of spectacular. And you see a tweet by Winchester here, and this tweet is a perfect example of the leadership he's shown throughout the season. Never mind the crazy numbers he's put up. 17 touchdown passes, only 3 interceptions, at least 1 touchdown pass in every game this year. The 4th leading rusher in the NEC, 4 games with at least 90 rush yards. Really, it's been a magical season for CCSU and quarterback Aaron Winchester. Scott Pioli knows it, and he, just like us, hope the Blue Devils keep on rolling. That's amazing, bro. And what has me in a state of amazement this week? Well, it's 2 old friends. These guys were in our Stats Amazing segment back in week 1, and they did not disappoint this season, not in the slightest. Back in the preseason, Wagner linebacker Cam Gill was 3rd overall amongst active FCS leaders in tackles for a loss. Meanwhile, St. Francis senior Dejon Lee, he started the season ranked 4th overall amongst national TFL leaders. Fast forward to week 13, and the top 2 spots on the FCS season leaderboard are occupied by Cam Gill and Dejon Lee. Lee, with 4.5 tackles for a loss in the Week 12 win over Wagner, well, he has taken the national lead. 21.5 hits behind the line of scrimmage for the St. Francis linebacker, the most in the FCS. Cam Gill right behind in 2nd place with 20 TFL. Of course, Gill is the all-time NEC sacks king. He broke that record a few weeks back. But now, as their careers come to a close, Dejon Lee and Cam Gill are ranked 1 and 2 in the nation, and Stats Amazing. Let's chop it up with Rick Saratella of the NFL Draft Bible. It's time for the Week 13 NEC Football Chop Shop. Back in the NEC Football Chop Shop, I'm Ralph Ventre. He's Rick Saratella of NFL Draft Bible, also a scout for the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. Rick, Central Connecticut is going to the FCS playoffs. Another big day by quarterback Aaron Winchester. It was a battle of unbeatens, Central against Robert Morris, and the Blue Devils ran away with a 49-28 win. I assume at least one of your game balls will be coming from that matchup, but what did you see in Week 12?
Well, we're going to get to, that Central Connecticut big victory there and what a scene in New Britain. Commissioner Norris, I hope we found her. She got buried in the mix there. I thought we were going to lose her there for a second with all the mayhem going on the live stream, but it was a fun scene. But, I'm going to hold out on the Blue Devils game balls because we'll talk about that in the CCSU Duquesne matchup. We'll get all that in there. I wanted to highlight some of the other top performers around the league that, deserve some shine. And, this sophomore running back, Julius Chestnut, Ralph. I mean, Sacred Heart. What a gem they found here from Maryland. He is now leading the entire FCS in rushing. He's got nearly 1,500 yards on the season, a dozen touchdowns, and that's because, again, this past week, he's slicing, he's dicing, 2 big fourth quarter touchdown runs, including that 40-yard scamper. This guy is going to be really intriguing to watch moving forward. And, the Sacred Heart football team, they get their 3rd W over a Patriot League team. And, Chestnut, again, big game, shows he could be a workhorse back, 25 carries for $130 last week.
Yeah, the thing about Chestnut that I've noticed is he's a bruiser, he runs hard, he's explosive, but he can turn it up to another gear when he's in the open field. So I don't want to say he's deceivingly fast. I don't want to insult him at all, but for a guy who runs so hard, he also can turn on the burners when needed. Has had a number of long touchdown runs this year. You mentioned the 40-yarder that iced the victory over Lehigh. Sacred Heart 3-0 against Patriot League teams this year. But Chestnut, the interesting thing about him is we saw him some as a freshman, over 600 yards as a freshman, over 6 yards per carry during his rookie season. And now he's the primary ball carrier for Sacred Heart. Of course, Jordan Meacham went down in the first game of the season, and that opened up a lot more carries and an increased workload for Chestnut. And, he's been awesome. You said it, Rick. You said it. So definitely a well-deserved game ball for Julius Chestnut.
Yeah, I think there's going to be somewhat of a passing of the torch here. From last year, Ryan Folse was the big-time runner. This year, A.J. Hines has been getting kind of all the accolades and a record-setting career. Of course, he'll graduate and move on. Julius Chestnut will be that next running back in the NEC that everybody's going to be talking about.
Yeah, he's already over 2,000 career yards. He leads the FCS in rush yards this season. 2 years of eligibility remain after this one. So, yeah, I mean, you have to be excited about what could lie ahead for Sacred Heart and their sophomore running back. What did you see on the defensive side of the ball in Week 12, Rick?
Yeah, again, here, another player the NFL is going to have to start paying attention to. This, pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon, or is that Honey Dijon? No, that's Dejon Lee, 6'2", 245, a big bruising linebacker on the other end of the ball that can move around, cover sideline to sideline, Ralph. He was all over the field again. Career high, 14 tackles this past week against Wagner in the win there, 4.5 tackles for loss. He now has 21.5 tackles for loss on the season, 89 tackles, 2 blocked kicks this year. Always loved the special teams attributes. I think he has 4 blocked kicks for his career. So that's going to be intriguing to NFL teams. And hey, in addition, he's a turnover machine. He led the FCS with 6 forced fumbles last year. He's got 10 forced fumbles for his career. And all of a sudden now, you take a look at the body of work, the resume, the 20 career sacks, the 60 tackles for loss. This guy is going to be in an NFL training camp next summer.
Yeah, Dejon Lee wrapping up an incredible career for the Red Flash. He's on the Buchanan Award watch list. And the thing about Lee is he's done it against everybody. He's done it in NEC games. He's done it when the Red Flash have taken a step up in competition. I want to say there are at least 4 games in his career against CAA teams where he has recorded multiple tackles for loss. So he's gone up against some of the top FCS programs in the country and succeeded. And he really had a dominant day on senior day against Wagner in week 12. Dejan Lee, definitely someone who has that college production, who I would certainly be impressed by if I'm an NFL scout. All right, Rick, so we got the week 12 game balls. Now looking ahead to week 13, the regular season finale. What do you got for us as we wrap up the regular season? I think there is a team going for a perfect NEC record out in Pittsburgh. An intriguing matchup nonetheless.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a Dukes Up tune-up, and that's Central Connecticut at Duquesne. And, hey, all eyes on the Blue Devils here. I mean, and no disrespect to Duquesne, but it's all about Central Connecticut this week as, you know, they clinched that automatic FCS playoff bid, school program, record 10 victories going for the 11th. Coach Mack has done a phenomenal job this past season. And you take a look now, Central Connecticut 16-2 in their last 18 Conference League games. So they're going to try to build that momentum heading into the FCS playoffs. This is not going to be an easy out. I think they can go deep into the playoffs. You talk about the turnovers, 26 takeaways in 2019. The defense is on the prowl. And then you look at what they did. They got back to the grassroots. They got back to the ground and pound last week. No fancy motion, moving around, and all that pre-snap. They just took the ball. Hey, Danley Exelholm, 26 carries for $189. They had another back go off for 89 yards. 389 rushing yards on the day, Ralph. I mean, you can't compete with the team that just controls the line of scrimmage, controls the clock. What a performance. Of course, Aaron Winchester, smooth sailing for him, up to his usual tricks. 4 touchdowns he accounted for last week. Of course, the connection with Tayshawn Big Games James, once again in full effect. I think they had a nice 20-yard connection for a touchdown there. And then the NEC Defensive Player of the Week, Jaleel Brown. We have not talked about him yet. 7 tackles, that big 25-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown to seal the deal for the Blue Devils. And, hey, shout out to Robert Morris, too, last week. The Cinderella season comes to an end, but we've talked about Bernard Clark and the job he's done. We've talked about Coach Smith and the job he's done at Duquesne. And, you know, Central Connecticut goes in there, of course, with Coach Mack. I would assume, you know, we'll do our awards next week. I would assume there's a very good chance he could be the NEC Coach of the Year.
Yeah, we will find out the day before Thanksgiving. The official NEC postseason awards will be announced then via Twitter, so you want to keep an eye out for that. But just to touch on a few things that you mentioned, Rick. Number one, Central Connecticut with the run game. You know, they can spread it out and run the ball. They can line up and just beat you at the line of scrimmage. Power game. They can throw the ball. I mean, they really are a versatile group. They can do a lot of different things and do a lot of different things well. And this week, you know, they just really beat Robert Morris at the line of scrimmage. Another point that you mentioned Robert Morris, and they had a great season. It's not over yet. They still have a chance to get another victory over a very good Sacred Heart team in Week 12. That'll be a great matchup out in Moon Township. But one thing I noticed in that Robert Morris game, it was huge at the time. Matt Gonzalez, a blocked punt. There's a guy who I know you've mentioned has some potential at the next level, and he's a tight end. It's got to be encouraging when you see someone like that able to contribute on special teams.
The more you can do, the more valuable you are, and you're exactly right, Ralph. And, you know, he's going to be an H-back type of prospect, doesn't have the prototypical tight end size, but he's a mismatch problem, especially there in the red zone. You've seen him. He's, you know, just too fast for the linebackers. He's too big for the safeties. He's got some athleticism. He makes acrobatic catches. And to your point, now he's making plays on special teams. And it was good to see. I definitely was paying attention. Matt Gonzalez, I saw that blocked kick. My antennas went up. And again, the NFL scouts are paying attention.
All right. Well, you got Ralph and Rick in the Chop Shop for one last time in the regular season. We'll have a postseason edition coming at you sometime soon. But this is all for the Week 13 NEC Football Chop Shop. He's Rick. I'm Ralph. Until next time. Well, that will do it for the regular season. All 9 teams take to the gridiron one final time in Week 13. Remember to keep tabs on CCSU as they move forward into the FCS playoffs. For now, it's truly been a pleasure. I'm Ralph Ventre. This was the Whole 9 Yards on NEC Front Row.